Chief Godfrey belonged to the old school of mechanics, men who could listen to an engine and tell you its secrets. Loyal customers swore that any car he couldn't repair couldn't be repaired. He was an honest mechanic who would tell you exactly what was wrong with your car and what it would take to fix it. No bullshit. He raised 3 sons from the proceeds of the mechanic shop. They were well-behaved boys who grew up to be responsible men. He made sure they all went to school. The first son, John, ran a successful printing. By his mid-20s, he ran a printing press business. The second, Ben, owned a chain of restaurants across the town. Only the last boy, Callie, inherited his father's love for machines. He literally grew up inside his father's old garage. Before he learned long division, he learned to gap a spark plug. Through primary school and into secondary school, he spent evenings at his father's side, sleeves rolled, fetching tools and helping coax reluctant engines back to life. As Chief Godfrey grew older, the workshop didn't see as much action anymore until reluctantly he had to close it. His son, Callie, now an engineer in a car assembling plant, had no time for the old garage and it gradually fell into ruin. Some years later, the old man died. The town turned up in their numbers for his burial. Former clients who had nothing but praise for the old man's ingenuity with machines and his integrity in business. After the burial, the 3 brothers were summoned by their father's lawyer to hear the will. It was a simple will. John received money and one of the houses, and Ben received his father's investment in shares and the other houses. Callie received the garage. Callie waited for a laugh that never came. He looked from the lawyer to his brothers, then back to the paper. The old garage with the faded signboard. The old place now filled with dust and rotten iron and tools that had not been touched since the chief retired and stopped using them. He swallowed his disappointment, thanked the lawyer, and congratulated his brothers. He refused to disrespect the old man's memory by contesting his will. That evening, he walked to the workshop alone. The rolling door groaned when he pulled it up. The smell hit him, oil, dust, and he could almost swear the faint ghost of his father's perfume. The space felt smaller than he remembered, or maybe he was now used to the state-of-the-art open workshop at the car assembling plant. Racks stood half empty, spanners lay scattered, their shine long gone. A crankshaft leaned against one wall in the cramped office at the back. A rusty fan hung stiff from the ceiling as he opened his father's old-school desk drawer. Ledgers lay open at the bottom. Callie stood there and let the silence close around him. This room had raised him. Memories flooded in, beautiful and happy. His father's laugh when a stubborn knot finally loosened. The first time he bled on the job and refused to cry. The day he tuned an engine alone and the sound came out right. He ran his fingers along the bench, lifted a spanner, felt its weight. He could sell this old place and just forget about it. But something in him rejected that thought, even before it was fully formed. He wouldn't sell his inheritance. He would clean the place one corner at a time. He would open the rolling door on weekends, repaint the faded sign, and begin doing small repairs. He would let the old garage see action again. Why else would his father will it to him? He fetched a broom and a bucket, opened the windows, and rolled up his sleeves. Soon, the dusty old garage wasn't so dusty anymore. The first week, he cleaned until his hands ached. Rust flaked off spanners, cobwebs clung to every corner. He found spare parts hidden in boxes, brake pads that no longer fit any car on the road, spark plugs wrapped in a brown paper, screws and bolts with threads worn smooth. He polished what could be saved, threw out what could not. By the second weekend, the workshop looked alive again. Sunlight reached the floor, the racks stood tidy, and the air smelled less of dust and more of oil. He began taking small jobs from some of his father's old clients who were too happy to see the old garage come alive again. He refused money from the very first clients, saying he was only testing the tools. Word spread quickly. "Chief's boy is back," they said. Old customers returned in droves, bringing their cars, and Callie dealt with them with the same integrity his father did. It was in the middle of all this that Callie discovered the papers. He was clearing the tiny office, stacking ledgers in order, when his hand brushed against the underside of the desk. Something was taped there. He crouched, peeled the brittle masking tape, and pulled out a thick envelope, yellowed with time. His father's handwriting sprawled across the front. For Callie. Inside were sheets of graph paper covered in precise drawings, lines, angles, labels in neat black letters. At first glance, it looked like any ordinary engineering sketch. But as he spread them out on the desk, the truth emerged. It was several blueprints of a vehicle unlike any he had seen, detailed schematics of an engine, a cooling system, and most astonishing, a notation repeated across the margins: H2O intake. Water? Kali leaned closer, reading his father's annotations. Chief Godfrey, the old mechanic who pretended to dislike modern, computerized engines, had been researching an automobile powered not by petrol or diesel, but by water. He flipped page after page, disbelief giving way to awe. The signs weren't half-baked sketches. They were systematic, layered, the work of a mind that had labored for years. Some sheets bore corrections, arrows pointing to improved calculations. One bore a date scrawled in red ink just months before his father had died. Kali sat down hard on the stool. The old man had kept his secret from everyone. This was something else. This is the reason his father gave him the garage. He wanted the right hands to continue his invention. His hands. Kali remembered nights when he had woken to find the light in the workshop office still burning. His father hunched over papers. He had thought the chief was tallying expenses, but perhaps he had been drawing this impossible dream. Kali spread the blueprints again, a water-powered vehicle. The words themselves sounded like fantasy, the kind of thing engineers debated in theory but never brought to life. And yet, here was the evidence. Mathematics, diagrams, even handwritten notes about trial experiments. The room felt charged. He was standing at the edge of something vast. Kali's pulse steadied. He was a trained engineer now, with access to machines, suppliers, colleagues who understood design. He had knowledge his father never had the chance to gain, and he had inherited not only the workshop but also the patience, the stubbornness, the refusal to let a problem win. He gathered the papers into a neat stack. His course was clear. He would not let the blueprint rot in a drawer. He would attempt what his father had begun. The next day, he brought drawing tools and fresh graph sheets. He traced the old plans, annotated them with his own ideas, adjusted where calculations seemed off. By nightfall, his desk was a battlefield of papers and pens. The challenge was immense. Money would be a hurdle, time another. He could fail spectacularly, wasting years, burning savings, but when he imagined himself ignoring the blueprints, letting them gather dust, the thought felt like betrayal. Kali looked at the envelope again. For Kali. He strained his shoulders. If his father thought he could do it, then he is going to give it the old try. Kali's first attempt at the prototype was an audacious mix of hope and desperation. He cleared a corner of the garage, laying down fresh tops and old engine parts he had scavenged. Every evening after his day job at the car assembly plant, he returned to the garage and rolled up his sleeve, his jaw set in determination. He began with the engine core, following his father's blueprints to the letter. At first, it seemed straightforward. Pipes, valves, chambers, water injectors, they all fit together, but each test ended in disaster. The engine would sputter, groan, and then stall. Sometimes, small explosions threw water and steam across the garage, soaking him. On more than one occasion, he nearly quit, staring at the scorched metal and wondering if his father had been dreaming when he drew the plans. Money became a constant concern. The garage could no longer rely on small repair jobs to cover both living cost and prototype expenses. Kali dipped into savings, selling off tools that weren't essential. Nights blurred into mornings. Friends invited him out and he declined. He watched his colleagues at the assembly plant share laughs in the canteen while he measured fuel intake and recalculated injector angles. Every failure felt personal. He enlisted a few trusted mechanics from his father's old network, paying them handsomely for their evenings. They worked silently, following his instructions, occasionally exchanging skeptical glances when the engine misbehaved. Sparks flew as pipes burst, and water sprayed over blueprints, ruining the delicate calculations he had carried through hours of precision work. Yet, each failure taught him something. He adjusted injector timing, experimented with compression ratios, reinforced seals, and tried new cooling techniques. Weeks turned into months. Nights were filled with scribbles on scrap paper, calculations on the flickering lights in the garage. He survived on black coffee and the echo of his father's voice guiding him in absentia. After a year of pain and sweat, something changed. The engine roared to life, a steady pulsing heartbeat of metal and water. Kali felt the garage shake beneath him. He stepped back, astonished. Every component aligned, every valve responded. The prototype was alive. It wasn't perfect. Minor adjustments were still needed. Cooling was uneven, and the intake system needed refinement. But for the first time, Kali knew that his father's dream had a chance in the real world. His heart swelled. Standing there amid the hissing pipes and gleaming engine parts, Kali understood the journey itself had been as important as the invention. Each failure, each sleepless night, each moment of despair had built him into the engineer he was destined to be. The garage buzzed with energy the night Callie decided to test the prototype outside of its confines. The evening air carried the scent of wet asphalt and oil. He had cleared a narrow path behind the workshop, enough to see the vehicle in motion without disturbing neighbors. With a deep breath, he ignited the engine, hoping that nothing explodes. Steam hissed. Water bubbled. But this time, the car didn't sputter or cough. It purred. Slowly, cautiously, it rolled forward, then faster. The tires gripped the concrete, the water engine hissed in steady rhythm, and Callie's heart thumped in sync with its mechanical heartbeat. He had done it. The blueprint had become reality. Every night of blood, sweat, and frustration had culminated in this moment. The garage walls seemed to echo his father's absent approval. The empty space had transformed into a cradle of invention. Callie laughed aloud, his hands trembling on the steering wheel, eyes wide with disbelief and joy. Word of the water-powered car leaked first through the local mechanics network. A few of his father's old colleagues came to see the miracle, nodding in astonishment, shaking hands, and promising to spread the news. By morning, the story had reached the ears of small-time investors, curious engineers, and reporters from niche automotive journals. The first investor visit was nerve-wracking. The man in a tailored suit, his face tight with skepticism, stepped into the garage. Callie led him to the prototype, explaining the concept, the engineering principles, and the years of trial and error that had led to its success. The investor circled the vehicle, tapping the tires, pressing a button on the dashboard, and asking relentless questions. Callie answered each one, every detail drilled into him from nights spent over blueprints and metal. After several hours, the investor leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You realize," he said, voice measured, "this could revolutionize transportation, not just here, but globally. I want in. I want to fund a full-scale production." Callie's chest tightened. Dreams he had once only dared had become tangible. Other investors followed. Engineers offered collaboration. Media outlets wanted interviews. Through it all, Callie remained grounded. Every press release, every photograph, every recognition mentioned his father first. He made it clear that the invention had been a shared vision, his father's genius completed by his own hands. Yet, it wasn't just attention that came knocking. Rival inventors, skeptical peers, and industry pundits tested him, doubted him, tried to provoke failure. Callie welcomed it. Every critique, every challenge only sharpened his focus. He rebuilt, recalibrated, and refined. The prototype evolved into a fully functional vehicle, sleek, efficient, and entirely powered by water. The journey from disappointment to triumph had been long, grueling, and often lonely, but the breakthrough was now undeniable. Callie had not only resurrected his father's vision, he had made it real for the world to see. And in doing so, he had discovered that sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for those brave enough to unearth them. Callie was invited to be the keynote speaker in conferences and international expos. He traveled, presenting the water-powered vehicle to engineers, innovators, and investors across continents. Every time he spoke, he emphasized the man who had given him the chance, his father, Chief Godfrey, whose dream had been patiently folded into those yellowed blueprints. University labs requested collaborations, governments sent envoys, and environmental organizations hailed it as a revolutionary breakthrough. The Nobel Committee sent word that both Chief Godfrey, posthumously, and Callie were recipients of the Nobel Prize in Engineering and Sustainable Innovation. The announcement made global headlines. When Callie received the golden medallion, tears blurred his vision. In Stockholm, during the ceremony, reporters asked him about his father. "This was his vision," he said. "I only had the honor of finishing what he started. He showed me that greatness can be hidden in the quietest, most overlooked places." The empty garage wasn't just empty, it was full of possibility, and it taught me that sometimes the world's most valuable gifts are the ones people fail to notice at first glance. Callie returned to Lagos with the medallion, awards, and recognition, but the garage remained his center. Students and apprentices came to learn from him, not just about engines or water power, but about persistence, respect for legacy, and honoring those who come before. He mentored them in the same way his father had mentored him, teaching them patience, attention, and unwavering belief in what was possible.